Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm Audrey, and this is my thesis progress presentation. My thesis examines how hands-on learning about native plants deepens ecological understanding and strengthens community identity. So, ecological symbiosis is a phrase used in biology and ecology to describe a close long-term relationship between two or more different species. And I developed this model to better understand it and to guide what I want students to learn and experience from my design proposal. So I'll walk you through it quickly. This first one shows that I looked at the relationship between native plants and humans. And so, for example, if we look at ecological benefits, this can be understood as a service the ecosystem provides, such as air and water purification or its support of pollinators vital for agriculture. I then looked at native plants in relation to the environment. And finally, the relationship between humans and the environment. And the intention behind this project is to help students understand ecological symbiosis in a way that I just showed you through educational activities combined with the community project aimed at enhancing community identity. And this will help empower them to value and participate in further conservation efforts in the landscapes which they inhabit. So my design outcome will be implemented in Hazelwood, a community that is located southeast of downtown Pittsburgh. And I chose Hazelwood as my site because of its rich environmental and cultural history, with 55% of its landscape dedicated to parks and hillsides. And what once was an industrial hub is now a community in restoration. So looking at the Greater Hazelwood Neighborhood Plan, it emphasizes sustainability, encourages community ownership and stewardship, enhancing existing green spaces and the creation of new ones. And with a higher than average youth population, it has a growing need for after-school opportunities, all of these factors in which helped me decide to choose this site. And my research question is, how might action-based learning about native plants in the Pennsylvania Allegheny bioregion influence adolescents' understanding of ecological symbiosis? And how can the adolescents' enhanced understanding support conservation efforts that strengthen local identity and sense of place? And my sub-questions associated with this are, what role do native plants and green spaces play in shaping connections to local landscape? And which plants offer the greatest potential for creating meaningful learning experiences? Though I read like half a dozen resources, I'm going to just touch on two today. The first being Chala's work, which highlights that early meaningful nature experiences foster emotional bonds, care, and a lifelong commitment to conservation. And she also emphasizes, which you can see in this diagram, that educational programs, shown in the left-hand column, and community initiatives in the right-hand column, use experiential learning to shape action-oriented, environmentally conscious mindsets. This aligns with my goal of creating an action-based program grounded in community identity. And she also has a framework for nature connection, and this is used to measure it in children, or in my case, adolescents are my audience. And this is valuable for me just to help tailor my educational approaches to these students. The next work I looked at was Krasny's work, and this helped me understand better sense of place, which is in my research question. And this is the emotional and cognitive connections we have with vocations. And it shapes identity through the bonds we have with the land and the meanings we ascribe to it. And identity being a shaper of environmental behaviors, including place-based ties to nature. And finally, positive youth development, which is shown to enhance environmental education by supporting adolescents through all stages of growth. And for my artifact reviews, the first one I looked at improved ecological understanding, but it lacked having emotional impact due to its short duration, which highlights the importance of long-term interventions to address sense of place. And the second one, Tree Pittsburgh, has great strengths in interactive and community-based approaches, but could be better by exploring long-term participant outcomes to assess their impact on environmental behaviors and stewardship. And for my research, I did a survey to understand residents in Hazelwood. Also, there's some Pittsburgh residents as well, kind of around in different towns. Their engagement with green spaces and plants, their motivations for participating in the event, and nature's impact on them. And some insights on this was that green spaces build pride and identity within the community, and having shared experiences such as two neighbors planting a tree together can lead to a shared sense of space. Pain points of the survey showed that participants desired expert advice, and they also had a need for accessible and simplified resources to care for these plants that they were obtaining at this event. The second that I did was a mapping workshop I did with students, and I wanted to understand their perceptions and their interactions with plants and green spaces to kind of inform the design proposal, which we'll touch upon later. And insights from this showed that many of their favorite places involved interacting with family and friends, and likewise, green spaces were valued for recreation with their peers. And they even had secret or personalized spaces for privacy or just providing intimacy. And pain points associated with this was negative experiences such as poison ivy or mosquitoes deterred them from going to some spaces. There was an overall unfamiliarity with native plants, and a lot of the local spaces in the community seemed kind of less appealing than spaces outside of their immediate community. So to talk about my design proposal, I would like to refer back to the Chalice slide, and she kind of shows here that one can create an environmentally conscious mindset through these steps kind of highlighted in the diagram. And I would like to build on this by creating an educational program where students ages 12 through 17 can learn about native plants. So for example, sycamore trees through a workshop to help them learn about its growth patterns, history, and role. And for example, like how it stabilizes riverbanks because Hazelwood is right by the river. And afterwards, they would apply this knowledge to create, with me, a tree care kit for identification, the benefits of this plant, and also tips and tricks for protecting and maintaining them. And also having a hands-on experience as the last stage where they could participate in a tree planting and practice care. So planting sycamores may be in a communal space that is erosion prone, and learning how to prune and just give these plants healthy growth. And the goals of this project is to create a program that strengthens community and well-being by empowering adolescents with the skills and knowledge through accessible resources and expert guidance so that they can enrich their relationships with the local landscape and become stewards of it ultimately. So looking ahead, I'm now in the design phase. So January through February, I will have to prioritize a community organization to collaborate with, fully develop the key components of the program, and then in March and April, the testing phase. So I will implement the program ideally in sessions with the same set of students, analyze the data to assess its impact, and then refine the program deliverables before finally wrapping up the documentation May and April months. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I have some questions on the next slide. Feel free to use them as a reference or questions or ask me anything, but thank you so much for joining.